Let me know if you can actually hear me. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Obviously we've not done this for a while, but yeah, I was hoping that we'd do a little bit of a live jazz-ish lesson. Given that no one watches these anyway, I thought we might as well do them live. Hi Brandon, it's going quite well. How are you doing? You can hear me loud and clear. Can you hear the guitar okay? I've got a hot chocolate and I think Lenny's just put the heating on, so it's about to get too hot. So I'm imagining some of you are wondering what happened to the live streams. I thought it's probably time to be frank with you. I've spent quite a lot of time in prison over what has been labelled as a parking dispute. But what actually happened was I parked my car. Well, I didn't park my car. I drove my Fiat Punto into the Princess Diana Memorial in London, and I thought that was the only way to really commemorate her memory. But that's been in dispute for a while, and they think that I'm owing them a lot of money for a parking ticket, but it's just not the case, and I won't pay it. But we're back here now. The actual truth is that I did want to get my stream to be a better quality with a live DSLR, but clearly that's not on the cards. I bought a few bits and pieces and obviously none of it worked. So yeah, but yeah, if you've got questions, things you want me to try and do in this live format, we'll try and go for about an hour maybe. I've got something that I sort of vaguely prepared for the Patreon people. I'm going to be playing What a Difference a Day Made. I guess we might as well start that in a second. But once I've got that out of the way, I wanted to just talk about my approach to jazz chords, such as it is, and yeah, let me know if you can hear things, and if you've got questions, we can cover them. That's kind of the point of this thing, I guess. Right, let's see me butcher this tune. Absolutely not Jim. didn't go as badly as it could have. So that's my take on what a difference a day made. Jim, the dogs did not choose the colour scheme. Anyway, so one of the questions that I was asked over on Patreon. Patreon is where you will find the backing track for this, by the way, and also my chord melody stuff. Hopefully that was alright. I don't know if this is streaming okay. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. Apparently now the stream status is poor. I can do what I can do, but I don't know if there's anything I can do about it. But anyway, we'll see. So, to talk about the things. So, if you're a guitarist person, you might have heard of things like Ted Green's chord chemistry, or modern chord progressions, or even if you're a beginner guitarist, you've probably seen big sheets and big books of loads of chords. And I guess when you're early on, you think, I probably need to start to memorize all of these things. And even in like the early jazz books and stuff, there's that sort of thing going on. So, for instance, in this book, there's 105 pages of different progressions and fingerings and all that sort of stuff. And when you start on that kind of trajectory, you think, well, I'm never going to learn any of this stuff. So, here you go, hun. So for me, that's not actually my approach. So aside from kind of your very basic kind of, the stuff that you learn, like bar chords and these kind of chords that crop up in the kind of beginning stages of stuff, I don't really think about things in terms of chord names. I kind of think of it as like available notes within the scale. So, I couldn't work out, what these things are, if you've had a chord like this or whatever, or like that one that I ended on, which was, but I'm more thinking about what's available, and that's how I kind of arrive at my chord voicings and stuff. So for me, rather than learning loads of different chords, I think it's kind of worth learning to hang kind of bits of chords off of a melody. So for instance, if you've got a D here, you can hang sixes off of it. And for the kind of jazz playing that I do, I think that's kind of more useful than having millions of voicings, whatever that would mean if you did have endless voicings. I don't know. So let's just take some of that melody. For me, that's the important part of the tune, and that's where I kind of base all of my jazz stuff from, is the actual melody of the song. And then, once you've got that melody, kind of should eventually become kind of effortless-ish, so you can play it around the neck in different places. Then I'm thinking, you might want to try this initially. So maybe you try and play the root alongside the melody for everything. See what's going on there. So I'm kind of, as you've memorized the tune, hopefully you know what the bass line is doing and what the melody is doing, so you're just putting them together and sort of around the neck. Now the next stage from that might be to try and add a third or something, or bear in mind that if you're playing with a bass line, you don't even really need to worry about that bass part too much. So if you're going to assume that you've got a bassist that's going to handle those low notes, or you've got a backing track that is going to, hey Jason, then what you can do is just worry about the most important notes of a chord, which are the third and the seventh. And I'll try and demonstrate this. So we want an E minor there, so we've got a G, which would be the third of the E minor, and a D would be important. It's gone wrong. But do you get what I mean? So the third and the seventh are actually kind of the most important notes, and if you can get those together and work out ways that you can grab those kind of voices, so you know, if you've got an E minor, you want a few variations of things that will make it sound like an E minor. It's basically what I'm going for, or some kind of interesting suspension, so that thing. So those are the things that I would work on more than big voicings, and in particular there's a few kind of simple voicings that I end up going for, and most of it's dictated by what melodies appear to be the going thing. So that's a chord that I go for a lot, which is like a variant of E minor. So yeah, actually that's a point actually. So you probably want to think of trying to get a variant for each type of chord with the root on the A string and the root on the E string. So you know, just in real time there, playing some stuff which sounds awful, but you get what I mean, as in you want to kind of get together voicings or concepts that you can kind of play in a few different places on the neck. And more than anything else, I think it's important to just try and put things together and make music. I guess the way I think about it is if you don't use it, you will just lose it, and so that's why I try to put kind of voicings into pieces of music that I want to remember. So like for instance, I discovered this one yesterday, a warm tone, a comforting warm tone. Cheers, Jason. Yeah, if I want to really remember a voicing, I make sure to use it a lot, otherwise I'll just forget it essentially. So I use that one loads. This is a new one, which is like a variation of a B essentially, in second inversion. But I'm going to use that all over the place now. Let me think. So if I was using that for a D. So for instance, I might try and play that over a tune like. And then just start trying to put these voicings in places where they didn't initially belong. Or, you know, like an Alan Holdsworth thing that I found the other day when I was doing that home transcription. What is it? This? No, hold on. What is it? That one. Hey Kevin, how you doing? Just for that. Right, so I'm going to try and do that tune again. Maybe it'll be different, maybe it'll be awful, but we'll see. So it's not particularly prepared what I'm doing. So Well, that went worse than the first time. Anyway, so yeah, that's me playing guitar live. So that's what it actually sounds like. So sorry about that. Right, has anyone got any questions, requests about stuff, or do you want to hear me play some shreddy stuff, or what? That's about all I've got to say on chords, I think. But yeah, in terms of learning loads and loads of different chords, I think there are different things you might want to look into, like things like drop voicings. Oh right, the reharms. So I guess there's that little bit there where I'm stopping outside and treating it as if I was into B major, I think. So with that C sharp minor. And that's most of what I'm doing there. That's the only reharm I think I'm doing. And Benaboo, that was a tune called What a Difference a Day Made. Right, so let's fire away at some other questions if we've got any. So yeah, also tune a sec. Right, has anyone got any requesty things? I just make the backing tracks myself, Marcello. They go up on my Patreon. find that kind of making the backing tracks can also be a useful way to teach yourself the bass line a bit better. Sorry, I have a noisy chair. Maybe we'll try one other jazz tune before someone gets sick of the jazz. What else have I done recently? Or maybe one that I haven't done particularly recently. Can't seem to find anything. Alright, we've got questions coming in here, dear. If you're playing a solo gig and no backing tracks, my approach is to use a looper pedal. Drums and bass lines, I use Contact, Native Instruments Contact. Brandon, so I've spoken to Tom about this and also David BB. I think it's useful, definitely. For anyone who doesn't know exactly what it is, so I think basically any time that you've got a chord, obviously he can explain this a lot better than I can, but say we were playing What a Difference a Day Made, over that E minor, he holds that E in his head as the root, and he visualizes everything off of that root. So you'd have like the 5th, or the 9, and basically that's the way that he visualizes the other notes that he's aiming for. I'm not sure that's exactly what I do. I think what I do is visualize everything based off of the home key. So for me, I'm visualizing things around the D major, generally. That's what I'm doing. No, Jason, I don't know that tune, but you're the second person to ask in 2 days for me to do something with it, so it looks like that might be one for next week. So yeah, I think it'd be a useful thing to do though, if you were to visualize everything off the root as well. So for instance, if you know that where the 5th is, you know where to sharpen it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely a good method for sure. I don't know exactly how else you might want to do it. I guess you could think about bigger kind of scale structures or whatever. But for me, so the way that I work, because I initially play piano, is I kind of think of everything in the key that it's in, if that makes sense. So my D major is all over the neck, if that makes sense. So that's what my practice is, trying to join up the fragments of D major that I know, so that I can play D major all over the neck, if that makes sense. But a useful thing also to do with the Tom Quayle stuff is, well, not even just the Tom Quayle stuff, but it's to take arpeggios, which I guess are also kind of, they're kind of built in those interval function things, aren't they? So you've got like an E minor arpeggio, you know, you've got the root, the 3rd, then the 5th and 7th. You could just take that through a tune, obviously. And that's a big part of what my initial kind of jazz practice was, before I figured out that you should actually be learning tunes. Yeah, I don't think, also I don't think, Brandon, thinking in terms of shapes is not a negative thing either. The way that I like to think about this stuff is like different layers of meaning. So with music, a lot of things can be true at the same time, if that makes sense. So, you know, whilst it's true that that's D major, you could also think of it as some other things, if that makes sense, and you could think about it in intervals and all that sort of stuff. The more important thing, I think, is to try and make some music so that you're not getting too bogged down by this feeling of like inferiority, or, you know, I don't know enough theory or whatever, because there are plenty of people that can get by with no theory whatsoever. So more important, I think, is to be able to make kind of musical sounding phrases probably than to be able to I don't know, recite millions and millions of scales, if that makes sense. And some people can sort of hear the interval function things to some degree. I rely on my ear for some stuff. I'm not a person that necessarily everything jumps out of the fret off of the fretboard at me like in a theoretical way. It's more that I'm relying on some muscle memory and stuff. Right, does anyone have any other questions or things you want me to try and do? Or let me see if I can actually, let's try summertime for a second, given that it's night. Oh, actually, maybe we should just do autumn leaves. Why not? It's the problem when you start playing jazz, you've got to play jazz. Right, download. Dogs have just gone outside and started barking. Yeah, Kevin, the thing about playing, like, this is one of the weird things I find about the transcription idea, is that not loads of people talk about just transcribing pure melody, which I think probably the most beautiful melodies were probably planned, if that makes sense. You know, like a composer sat down and spent time on the Disney and show tunes and all that sort of stuff, and in those things you tend to find some kind of beautiful stuff and some more planned stuff. And I think that might be a good place to start to try and pull out melody, if that makes sense, if you are worried about melodic playing. Feel free to chuck requests my way and ask me to play better. Tune at all. Sentimental mood. Do that in a sec. have some stream issues. It's saying on here that streaming is a little bit dodgy. I don't know whether it's a busy time in my area or something, but if you've got any other questions or anything, fire away. I can try and answer them in a sentimental mood. I can't listen to it, Kevin, which will be the start of my process, so as I don't really want to get up a sheet because that'd be pointless. I guess I could do it. Lead sheet. It's a ballad at least. Yeah, I'm not exactly a reader type of person, so for me, I want to listen to it. Let me see if I can. Anything I can do? Not really. What key is this room? Right, I'll listen to that and this will be my next tune, but without listening to the original or, you know, someone doing it, it's not generally the way I tend to learn jazz. Kevin, you could download my Helix presets if you wanted to. I think you'd probably enjoy one or two of them. Shall I get off of the jazz subject now? Yeah, anyway, so what the thinking is actually, so if you learn enough kind of jazz tunes, you'll start to figure out your grips, if that makes sense. So you'll find those things, bits and pieces that work for you, if that makes sense. That's more where I found that I'm picking up kind of habits and voicings from than any kind of book or anything. Or if you listen to bits and pieces, if you're transcribing and listening to tunes, you might find bits and pieces that you can pick up, like that came from a Bill Evans tune. Which is kind of a little useful bit of stuff. Yeah, well, hopefully that makes some kind of help for my approach to jazz chords. I'm not one of these people that puts together like an elaborate arrangement with loads of block chords. I don't particularly vibe on that. So the way that I work is more kind of trying to do the Jonathan Kreisberg-y thing, where you're playing the melody and hanging some comping chords off of it. So yeah, if you want to remember a jazz chord, use it. Otherwise, it goes. Or any chord actually. Find a way to use it. I think this is something that, to me, it seems like what Alan Holdsworth was doing when he was writing tunes. Also, Jason, thank you very much for that. For Nemo and Fenton, they need support. Alan Holdsworth, to me, a lot of some of his kind of tunes seem to be a way of memorizing a certain thing. Well, maybe this is me projecting something, but like looking at Home, it seems like it's sort of a way of grouping together certain physical voicings, potentially. That might just be me, but he does that many times in the song, and voicings like this, he does that a lot, and that kind of thing. So to me it seems like maybe he's trying to catalogue a few things and organise them together in a way that he won't forget. Brandon, so when I'm learning a jazz tune, which is new to me, so this is something that I've done loads over the sort of last 2-3 years, Brandon. The goal was to kind of learn many tunes so that I didn't feel like I was kind of a fake jazzer, if you know what I mean. I think as a guitarist who comes into the jazz world, I think the imposter thing is kind of real for quite a few of us. And the only thing that I found that actually works for this is not kind of learning licks or going through books of jazz methodology. It was just to learn jazz tunes, and I heard Mike Marino and Jonathan Kreisberg talk about this sort of stuff. And so I made it my thing to learn a jazz tune every week. And the process was to, on maybe the week before, like the Sunday or the Saturday, start listening to a tune. And then on Monday I would find 1 or 2 versions of it, and like Chet Baker, for instance, or Peggy Lee or whoever, and I would just learn the melody to start off with. So listen to the lyrics and hear it and try and play along with just the melody. Sometimes I'd learn the words as well, that would help. And then the next stage, as that's happening, for me, the ear is kind of happening. Since I played piano from the age of 5, I was taught kind of quite a lot of the importance of the listening thing anyway. So for simple stuff, I can hear like flavours of chords quite well. So like if a thing's a major, minor, dominant, 7, that sort of stuff, I can hear that quite well. So normally the melody, it'll take me like a day to kind of memorize it and put that together, and then I'll start to try and hang the chords off of it, if that makes sense. Then I might listen closer to some lines. So for instance, I learnt the tune Laura, and something David Raskin tunes anyway, but for those I was listening to the chords quite closely, but also listening to the movement of like extra string lines to get me those kind of altered voicings and that sort of stuff. I will check out a real book occasionally or something like that. If it's on a gig and someone calls a tune or whatever, then obviously I have to resort to charts. But when I'm practicing at home, the goal for me is to never have anything written down, which is what I've done for the hundreds and hundreds of jazz tunes that I learned for that week. So I'd learn the jazz tune at the start of the week, memorise the melody, memorise the harmony, try and put it together, and then try and improvise over it by the end of the week. That's what I try to do. If there's some part of the tune which is not immediately obvious what would work over it, I might check out someone else's video, or transcribe a bit of a solo and try and get into the headspace of whatever they were doing for that. Or like Wayne Shorter's Footprints, there's this weird turnaround, and I hadn't really ever heard anyone play anything that sounded like it was properly inside those chords, so I was on a bit of a mission to find out if anyone had kind of put together something that made sense on that. There was a channel called Amy Nolte, and she broke down there's triads that would work with those chords really well. So that was another thing. But yeah, so that's basically a lot of listening at the start of the week and trying to play the melody, and then once that's in your head, I find that the harmony, because you've spent the time working at the melody, sort of fits with it as well, if that makes sense, for me. But yeah, I try not to use the real book or whatever, just because the exercise for me is to try and not have things written down. The idea being that I could be a more spontaneous player or something and actually know the tune that I'm trying to play, if that makes sense. Hey Roberto, thanks for the congrats. So, any other questions about stuff, or do you want me to play something different? Maybe I'll put the jazz away. That's what I found has brought me more enjoyment than anything else, to be honest, Brandon. Like, there's plenty of other great jazz channels around, Jens Larson, for instance, and I think Jonathan Kreisberg and Mike Marino are doing some teaching stuff now. But for me, what I've found is the things that make me want to do this more is just to learn tunes that inspire me to play guitar, if that makes sense, and the jazz stuff that I want to hear. I think there's enough jazz around that you can kind of make it as personal as you want it to be. But what I did in the early days was quite a lot of probably normal stuff, like looking at a real book, and I never even potentially listened to what the original tune sounded like. I was just playing over the changes or through the changes or whatever you want to call it. But for me, I feel like that was just a bit of a waste of time. So you can find there's early clips on the channel of me playing over I Fall in Love Too Easily, and I think when I recorded that video I'd never even listened to the actual tune, and that's kind of stupid. So it's now one of my favourite standards as it happens. Screwed that up. the go-to voicings. You can build it from the third or from the root at least. So I'm viewing that as like a B7, but so yeah, if you do enough of this stuff, you'll start to kind of develop your own habits, I think. Whether that is that you're a person who does like elaborate arrangements of things, or whether you're a loose, lazy person like me who kind of just wants to play the melody and play some chords underneath, but are not that fussy about what they are. But I think learning the actual melody and head to a tune is kind of the most important thing. And I know it's tempting for the focus to be on the lead playing, but for me, I find most of the fun is in figuring out interesting things to do with the actual real material that was written. I'm probably not going to visit your house. Right. Johan reminded me of a backing track that I made the other day, so I'm going to try and play some adult guitar, or childish guitar, whichever way you want to look at it. Obviously I'm going to be using Eric Lead. Right, so hopefully this has been okay for you guys. I might just turn it down, let me know the levels are okay. So here's a backing track. It's also on my Patreon. Duo time, let's find it. See if I can. Let me know the levels. that backing track. Maybe I should try the FM3 Fresh one, one of my favourites. Let me find it. Any other questions, feel free to fire away. In terms of hollow body guitars, I don't know, maybe there is a bit of a move away from that in some of the modern stuff. So like a lot of people might play a Telecaster, or players like Ben Hudson play a Strat. I've got a ES165 downstairs, but it's a little bit of a problem live, and I don't know if anyone has any ideas for how you solve this. But when you try and play it at any kind of, not even crazy volume, you get quite a lot of feedback, just because of the nature of the guitar. So I find like the D'Angelico slimmer hollow body with a center block is more appropriate for actually playing live. I don't know how people do the thing where they can take out a massive ES175 without it having feedback, but if anyone's got any answer to that, I'd like an answer before I sell that guitar. Right, let's try this one and hopefully we're D minor. I think Eric Johnson probably fine. I'm not really thinking chord tones, I'm thinking melody, and I'm thinking key. Well, so I'm not thinking chord tones unless I need to be thinking chord tones, if that makes sense. So if it was something difficult to move through many keys, if I was moving through many keys or several keys, or even two keys that were disparate, then I'd be thinking chord tones. But if it's something simple, then I'm not. You come back to shred, sorry Kevin. Is the balance okay? thank you for joining me today. Sorry about my playing again, but yeah, that's me back in the live streaming world. I don't know, maybe we make this a Sunday thing. It depends on how difficult the tune I'm trying to play that week is, whether I choose to actually put it in front of you and make myself look stupid. But yeah, so this was my thoughts on jazz chords and what a difference they made at the start of the stream. If you want the backing track for that and the chord melody that I've sort of put together for it, that'll be up on my Patreon if you want it. If you want any of the backing tracks, that's also on my Patreon. I'm using an HX stomp for this video. If you want those tones, you can get them in the description. Sunday sales, that's what we should call this, isn't it? Well, I'm just trying to flog stuff to you. Anyway, hopefully that was useful. Hopefully I've answered the questions that you do have. Let me know. It seems like Jason and Brandon are about to meet up. We're about to go back into lockdown in this country, so that's cool. Anyone got any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up? Super easy trying to find presets. Am I rolling off the volume, if any, on the higher gain leads? No, I'm not rolling it off. I'm using single coil pickups mostly. Is that part of what makes a difference? Brandon, hopefully it was fun. Mark, I remember even when I was first starting to get into jazz, it was like YouTube wasn't really a thing, and I had to go to the library and get albums of people like Pat Metheny or, you know, pirate things because I was a poor farmer. Yeah, I think I learned off of cassette tapes early on. Oh, has anyone got any ideas for licks for tomorrow? I might do an arpeggio thing. Right, cool. Thanks for stopping by, everyone, and I'll catch you for another video tomorrow, obviously. Cheers!